Hi everybody, good evening and welcome to this talk on breaking the silence. Tonight we're going to look at screen readers and how they interact with our React applications. Also going to be looking at what we can do to make this interaction better. My name is Almero Steyn. As you can see, I'm a total accessibility fanatic. That's why I'm also standing here tonight telling you about it. I work for a company called Delft in Delft. And what you're about to see tonight are solutions that I found on real-world projects for real-world problems while building websites for the Dutch government, amongst others. You can find me on my blog or on Twitter if you have any more questions or need some information. But let's dive right in, and I think we'll start with an introduction of what exactly are we talking about now? Inclusive design, accessibility, big words. What is it about? If you haven't heard of it before, maybe let's just have a look at it. And inclusive design refers to the design of mainstream products and services that are accessible to and usable by as many people as reasonably possible. Now, when we translate this to our web applications, we are talking about web applications that are designed and built to be used by as many people as possible, regardless of how these people interact with computers and the internet in general. And of course, in order to achieve accessible design, our websites need to be accessible. And an accessible website is a website that provides its information, its actions, everything that's contained within the website to users out there, once again, regardless of how they interact with the internet. Now, this talk is not about accessibility basics. If you want to read more about it, if accessibility is new to you tonight, please visit the page on accessibility in the React docs, which I wrote last year for the React docs. It will tell you about why accessibility is important and how do we achieve this baseline of accessibility. And a general secret is if your HTML that's rendered is good, you already have about 80% of your accessibility covered in your applications. There's the link. Go and have a read through all the links in the presentation. This is already online. I'll show you where it is later, so don't worry about writing it down. You can always go and find it. Tonight, we're specifically looking at screen readers. What is a screen reader? A screen reader is basically a piece of software that acts as a voice synthesizer that will read the screen back to a user that cannot see the screen at all or cannot see the screen well enough to interact with it. So all the text, everything on the screen is ideally read back to the user through these pieces of software. I've got the three most used screen readers on the screen here. JAWS, Job Access with Speech, that is a paid Windows screen reader used with Internet Explorer. NVDA, Non-Visual Desktop Access, which is an open source Windows screen reader that you can use. And if you have an Apple device, you already have VoiceOver hidden behind the accessibility settings that you can go and activate and experiment with. But what is it like to use a screen reader? Now, a screen reader user, to put you in their shoes, I'd like you to imagine navigating a totally dark room with a flashlight. And all you can see in this room is exactly what the flashlight is shining on at any one moment. So if you have a table of people sitting in the room and you shine the flashlight on them, you can see what the people are doing. But if I shine the flashlight away from the people, somebody gets up, silently walks away. I have no idea what he's just done. I have to go look through the room. Where is this person? Oh, and finally go and find the person if I want to know what has just happened, unless this person calls out to me. And in the same way, screen reader users experience the website. The screen reader will read back only the element that the user is currently interacting with, or the user can sequentially read through the web page to discover what is happening at the moment. And in the same way as with the dark room and the torch, if something is happening outside of the view of the screen reader, the user will be totally unaware of it. And maybe the best way that I can do this is to illustrate with a video clip. And keep in mind that this application I've created, well, hopefully we'll see it soon, but this application I've created is built with accessible HTML. So there's nothing in the HTML that keeps screen readers from seeing what's happening. But it's got some basic routing. It's a basic to-do type application. And I'd like you to notice what happens when the user navigates in the website and try and imagine that you can only see the element that is currently being used. The element that carries focus, you'll see the focus outlines. or close your eyes and try and see if you can figure out from the language track what is happening. And with a bit of luck, okay, now it's really... Okay, we're going to try this again. As it's not my computer, maybe a robot is around to offer some suggestions of why I can't see my video.
It should be like this, right? You shouldn't see the screen.
Yeah. Okay, also, can you refresh this for me, please?
Yeah.
There we go. We just needed a bit of magic touch. Okay, now you can see the video.
Enter. Tab, React Amsterdam demo add task page, contact link. Tab, add new task, name edit required invalid entry. Tab, description edit required invalid entry. Tab, cancel and go back link. Tab, add new task, add task button. Enter.
Okay, the video's not working tonight.
Shift tab, name edit required invalid entry, use JAWS key plus Alt plus R to read descriptive text. Please provide a task name, type in text.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Tab, cancel and go back link. Tab, add new task, add task button. Enter.
That is what happens when you present on somebody else's laptop. Okay, that's a bit unfortunate because you had to see what was happening there. Is there any way to get this? Sorry, this is a little bit crucial for the presentation.
So once again, what do you want? Play again?
You can try and play it again, but we need to see what is happening on the app.
It's not repeating again.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we can just turn.
Sorry about this.
Now it's frozen. Yeah, sorry about that. It's latest several laptops. When you use touch bar, they suddenly crash. I'll need to reboot it. You can tell a nice story again.
What would you like to hear again?
Where are you from?
Originally from South Africa. So,
What got you into accessibility?
what got me into accessibility? I was a normal developer. Not that I'm saying I'm abnormal now or higher than everything, but I started out like everybody does, and I worked on a project. My first project for the Dutch government, and there it is important, especially if you do websites that everybody has to be able to use. Accessibility is very important. And there I got introduced to accessibility, what it's all about, and immediately it made sense to me. It made sense to me that I want to create applications that's not only for me, but for everybody out there. So I started digging in deeper, and beyond just achieving that, there is this whole subculture under it, there's techniques, and it really becomes interesting to actually seeing this taking shape, because this is a totally different render to the visual render. In fact, your browser renders a DOM from your HTML, but for screen readers, they render an accessibility tree. And finding all of these features of the browser and how it exposes it really excited me.
Do you think it makes, while you are speaking about complexity of DOM, we have mobile first experience, right?
Yes.
So we have specific interfaces built for mobile devices with limited layout, and
Yes.
users use them under those.
Even if it's straight on without the preview.
The same desktop application for accessibility. Maybe it should be simplified.
Actually, you are quite right. There's no reason that you have to do, in most cases, there's no reason that you have to do more work to achieve accessibility. You just have to render the right HTML. And the more basic the HTML, the more straight direct translation is in terms of clear text, in terms of what's on the screen at any stage, the less work that you have to do. So yes, a basic mobile-first application that just presents its text in the right way will be a lot more accessible than a complex application will be. But we're going to give it a try again. Let's see. And it's working. Okay.
React Amsterdam demo add task page, contact link, add new task, name editor required invalid entry, description editor required invalid entry, cancel and go back link, add new task button, enter, shift tab, name editor required invalid entry, use JAWS key plus Alt plus R to read descriptive text, please provide a task name, type in text, cancel and go back link. Add new task, add task button. Enter. Windows G.
So what we have here is a very, what one could say, a very basic application. It would be hard for me to present React features with some routing and make it more basic than I have made it there already. But we saw problems. We saw that navigation wasn't announced. I was changing whole views into and out of the page. This was not announced. The form errors were not announced. Application actions were not announced. Data was being loaded. The user was being redirected. And if you thought about that this is what you heard was the only thing you could see, even this small little application turns out to be virtually unusable to a screen reader user out there. And why is that? Routing out the box is silent. If I use React Router and I go and render components, screen readers don't know that the new component is rendered. Other important updates and messages are completely silent. Error messages on forms. The fact that data was being loaded, the fact that data was finally loaded, this is all very important visual cues. The screen reader said nothing about it. So at the end of the day, what I'm telling my screen reader users in that application is, dear user, you are not welcome. It's definitely not what I want to be able to present in my applications. So tonight we're going to look for some solutions to these problems. Now that the videos are finally working, thank you, Robert. First of all, set focus after navigation. Now, earlier in the talk on D3, we already saw some mention of refs. What I can do is a routed component, as soon as it is rendered, I can go and set focus in an element in that component. The screen readers will read out whatever text is in the current element that has the focus. In the same way that I could set focus on an element using the tab keys, like we just saw, I can, in JavaScript code, go and set focus on an element. In this case, it will be handy to set focus to my header element. Why? Because a header describes the section that I'm currently want to tell the user about. In order to set focus on it from JavaScript, I need to add a tab index of -1 to it. Otherwise, I cannot set focus to a header. Typically, form controls, things like buttons, inputs, links, they are all focusable, but any other element, if I want to focus it, I need to add a tab index of -1 to it. And then I can use the ref, which gives me the handle to the mounted element in the DOM, and imperatively I can go and set focus on it. Interestingly enough, the React docs mention do not overuse refs. Correct. But setting focus for accessibility is one of the very use cases mentioned there when you do use refs within React, and that's the reason that it exists. Okay, so we're back to a video. Now let's hope that it doesn't go the same way. And it does. This is a nightmare. So we're just going to reload it. It probably would work better in Firefox. Okay. Right. This is really a case of works on my machine. But then, yeah, I'm going to unfortunately, if you have, do you have something like Firefox installed on this? Then I'm going to give it a shot in Firefox because I definitely know that it worked in Firefox. And we'll go back to that slide. And now it's green. No, this is cursed tonight. Ah, this is good as it's going to get.
React Amsterdam demo add task page. Add new task heading level 2. Add new task. Name edit required invalid entry. Type and text. Add description edit required invalid entry. Type and text. Add cancel and go back link. Add new task. Add task button. Enter. 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 Shift tab. Shift tab. Shift tab. Cancel and go back link. Add new task. Add task button. Enter. Tasks. React Amsterdam demo tasks page. Tasks heading level 2.
Okay, so we've solved a bit of the problem. At least the user now gets to see or hear that something has happened when I navigated at any point. Because focus was set on the header, the user got some feedback. In order to get the other app updates, I want to use something called ARIA Live Regions. That's what I really want to get tonight through all the not working videos. Sorry again. There is a link, very long link. Once again, I'll share the slides. You can go to that link to read more about ARIA Live Regions. But an ARIA Live region is nothing more than a region I create in my HTML, JSX, that eventually translates to HTML, that I go and decorate with a number of attributes. Important, all ARIA attributes are valid JSX props, and it's supported by React, so you can go and use it in your JSX. Typically, a div is maybe used. The idea of an ARIA Live container is that an ARIA Live container is registered with screen readers. When the content of this container changes, screen readers will announce this to the users. So there's a couple of interesting attributes. First of all, it's handy to give it a role, to tell the screen reader what type of container it is. In this case, I used log. By the way, the other values are down here. A log role says that I'm going to be appending messages to it. ARIA Live is the level of the messaging. Polite means that the screen reader will keep on reading what is just read before reading my message. Assertive means that I interrupt the screen reader, so I have that power as well. Don't just use assertive. Polite is usually good enough unless you really want to interrupt the user. ARIA Relevant gives an idea of what type of changes I want the screen reader to read out. And finally, ARIA Atomic gives an idea or tells the screen reader to read either the entire content of this region or only the changed bits of the region when the content change. So let's go and use what we've just learned, and we're going to implement an error announcer for our input. And it should be easy enough. I should be able to just go and render an ARIA Live region with some error text when the input is faulty. You also notice some other ARIA properties, which has nothing to do with live regions, but for instance, ARIA described by ties the error text to the input, so that screen readers also know that it's not just some text on the page, but that text refers to the input above. I had it in there because I want to show you some accessible JSX as well. Okay, this should be fine. Now I've got a green screen of death again. And we're going to see what JAWS now does to the errors. You have in your mind what the errors were. Hopefully the video.
Cancel and go back link. Add new task. Add task button. Enter. Please provide a task name. Please provide a task description. Add task button.
Okay. So the screen reader, JAWS, have now read out my form errors. Yeah, it's time to celebrate, party, we're done for the night, we can go home. Or maybe not. Because there are also other screen readers out there. And let's have a look what NVDA does to the same solution.
Cancel and go back visited link. Add task button.
Oops. Okay, so it worked perfectly in JAWS with Internet Explorer. With NVDA with Firefox, my live regions are still pretty silent. And why is that? The reason is that live regions need to be rendered stably before you go and change the content if you want to communicate to all screen readers out there. So let's go and fix it. And this example can easily be fixed by not rendering and swapping in and out the entire live region, but rendering the live region and only going and changing the content of this live region when I want the screen readers to announce it. But simple example, we already had some problems with it. It feels a bit fiddly, and it is. Imagine having these live regions all through your application and trying to manage, okay, when is which one rendered, and think about a component that is now just working and the user of the component decides to hide it, and all of a sudden my live region is broken. So what I actually want in my application, I have one screen reader that can read out one bit of text at a time, and a user or person that can hear one bit of speech at a time. So ideally, it would be nice to have one ARIA live region in my application that would broadcast all these messages to screen readers. And where do I want to put it so that it's most stably rendered? I vote for right at the top of the DOM or right at the top of the component tree. If I can get it in my root component, I know that it is rendered for the lifetime of my application, and the rest of my application can just send messages to it. Wouldn't that be wonderful? If I render it further down in my component tree, I always have the chance that it will be switched in, switched out. If I have too many live regions floating around, I have a chance that the messages will override each other. Some will get swallowed by screen readers. So we want a stable region at the top of our application. We know now what we're going to be doing, so let's go and light up the dark room that we had in the second or third slide. But communicating from child right up to the top parent is not a simple task. We need React context. If we want to make something like that work now, or roll a complex Redux solution, that would do it. React broadcast, there are a number of solutions to do it, or you could just use the ARIA Live announcer that I've created for you, that you can pull down from NPM. It's called React ARIA Live. It provides you with two components, a live announcer and a live message. As long as you wrap your entire application with live announcer, you can use live message anywhere in your application. If you are changing the message prop, or you are rendering it with a static message, that will be broadcast to this ARIA Live region that's rendered right at the top of your application, and it will broadcast these messages in as stable a way as, well, humanly possible, one could say, because these ARIA Live regions can be a bit fiddly. So with another green screen movie, I'm going to try and show you what happens now. We've got focus, we fixed the form errors, and now I've implemented React ARIA Live. Of course, if you want to roll your own context solution, be my guest. It's nice to go and play with these ARIA Live regions to see how they actually work. But we're now going to see our little application with focus control, with error messages being broadcast, and app updates being given to the user. And here we go.
Skip the content same page. Tasks current link. Add task link. Enter add new task. React Amsterdam demo add task page. Add new task heading level 2. Add task page loaded. Add name edit required invalid entry. Type in text. Add description edit required invalid entry. Type in text. Add cancel and go back link. Add new task. Add task button. Enter. Please provide a task name. Please provide a task description. Shift tag. Shift tag. Shift tag. Name edit required invalid entry. Use JAWS key plus Alt plus R to read descriptive text. E R require E. A E space E E N E O N. Add descriptive R. E E E R A N. Add cancel and go back link. Add new task. Add task button. Enter. Adding task prepare presentation. Once completed will be redirected. Tasks React Amsterdam demo tasks page. Tasks heading level 2. Tasks page loading. Tasks loaded.
And there we have it. So what we see now, everything that a visual user, a sighted user can see on the screen happening, a screen reader user can hear happening through the screen reader, and that is what we are trying to achieve. That is inclusive design. All our users can now experience our app at the same level. And that's what I wanted to show you tonight. So sorry once again for the technical things. Sometimes it happens, at least. Thank you for sticking through it with me. The presentation is already online there, so you can maybe go and rewatch some of the video clips without the green shade. If you want to have a look at the example app, I've got it on a branch on my GitHub repo of my React A11Y patterns. You can go have a look at the application. Thank you so much. I don't know if we've got time for questions now. Otherwise, find me during the course of the night if you have any questions on this. Thanks again for your time.